lazy genius archetype is one of the most interesting in sports anime due to how much of a dichotomy there is. These characters are among the most talented in their respective series, yet want to do the least amount of work possible, although the motivation or reasoning behind this does differ from series to series. Today we're going to talk about Murasakibara, the center for the generation of miracles, and the original depiction of the lazy genius. Murasakibara, in direct relation to physical ability, is the most gifted member of the Generation of Miracles, it being noted pretty directly that Murasakibara has the most latent energy out of the Miracle Generation by a mile, and in terms of pure ability, he might be the strongest. This translates to Murasakibara usually crushing his opponent with minimal difficulty. But I also do think this can be seen in how he is as a player, as Murasakibara is more so touted for his defensive capabilities. Aomine Daiki himself, the unstoppable scorer of the Generation of Miracles, directly noting that even he would have trouble scoring on the Purple Giant. This being directly intertwined with Murasakibara as a character, which we'll touch on in a moment, but it's no accident that he's on the more defensive-oriented team of Yosen. Murasakibara just doesn't run forth from offense to defense, so there's nothing that Siren can really exploit on defense. Even Murasakibara's coach isn't even fond of a player who refuses to run, but due to how exceptional he is, she allows it. Everything from the three-point line inward is Murasakibara's domain. This is partially attributed to his unbelievable wingspan and how absurdly long his arms are. And it's not just his arms, he's got legs to match and abnormally fast reflexes to make it all work. You think you'll have space, he'll close it in a single step. Murasakibara even getting a penalty violation on accident due to touching the ball before it reaches the highest point of the arc during the tip-off. Normally when you encounter this type of character, they're laid back or just have a very lax nature to them, but this actually just isn't the case for our Purple Giant. Murasakibara is noted to not actually have a mild temperament and is actually one of the more aggressive members of the Generation of Miracles. He's fairly bored with basketball to begin with and gets annoyed at most everything, so near the end of middle school he switched over to defense and will participate on offense as little as possible, the least amount of work so to speak, but he always excelled at offense. In the game against Yosen, Siren was gripped by fear over Kiyoshi's fatigue, and the other fear throughout the entire game. Now, since before the game had even started, they feared a certain threat. They feared that Murasakibara might go on the offensive. What caused this was the platitudes that Siren had been preaching, putting in the work to be the best in Japan, enjoying basketball. Murasakibara wants to teach them just how cruel the sport of basketball really can be. There even being an incident back in the Teiko middle school days when the opposing team made Murasakibara angry like they had just done. He scored 100 points in a single game. We see this demonstrated as even when there are 3 players posted up on Murasakibara, he is able to jump up and drop Thor's hammer on all 3 of them, despite being guarded by 3 players. It's not just sheer power, he's as fast on offense as he is on defense. Aomine is supplementing this with the pure physical onslaught that Murasakibara brings to each game. Energy is weight multiplied by speed, right? There are big dudes who are slow, and little guys who can really move. Plenty of both those types out there, but I've never seen a guy as big and fast as Murasakibara. The amount of energy he brings to the table is in a whole nother league. Even Kagami in the air is unable to stop the monstrous amount of energy the center brings. We also do get a bit more insight to Murasakibara's character with the dialogue that he gives. Basketball has always been a broken game. The hoop's 10 feet up in the air. That alone kills any notion of fairness. The game's made for bigger people to win. That's at the heart of this stupid sport. What's fun about that? Whatever skills you pipsqueaks might have, they can't beat my destructive power. Up against me, all your dumb ideals are just piss in the wind. The entirety of the basketball hoop collapsing to the ground while Murasakibara makes this declaration. Due to just being so gifted, Murasakibara doesn't find the game of basketball interesting in any sense, and it's overall just very boring for him, which is partially why he hates people that have fun or just give off these idealistic speeches or platitudes which inevitably always falter in the face of his raw power. It just annoys somebody who's going to win and is unentertained the entire time he does so. Kagami himself coming to the conclusion, how are we supposed to stop a monster like that? Even Kiyoshi, somebody who had lost to Murasakibara in the past and been a victim of his onslaught, just gets dominated in this game and gets picked up with one arm, getting ideologically throttled. As Murasakibara notes, that's just the reality. You've got no cards left to play, no more energy, and once you leave the court, I'll go right back to dominating the paint. Struggle all you like, but Siren's gonna lose. So what now? You failed to protect anyone again. Is it still fun basketball? This also highlights a fundamental difference between someone like Murasakibara and someone like Kuroko, who come from two opposing sides of the basketball spectrum. Murasakibara doesn't have the slightest interest in basketball, but he's got all the talent in the world, so he can't help but win. While Tetsu's got no talent, he loves the game. He was down for a while, but he's found a way to survive. So it's pretty much impossible that these two players who had opposing routes to basketball would ever see eye to eye. And the interesting thing is, neither of them are right. Everyone's got a different way of looking at basketball, so there's no point in saying anyone's wrong or right about it. But if you're going to make good on your convictions or whatever, then you gotta prove that you can win. Sometimes effort doesn't pay off, and enjoying something sometimes isn't enough. Situations like that are hardly uncommon. Even so, Kuroko loves the game and gives it his all, and believes that when Murasakibara belittles his hard work, there's no way he'll lose. The correct answer to these two ideologies, again, belonging to the winner. The winner is just and the winner is right. So if you are going to make correct on your ideology, you have to win during this game. This gets to the point where Siren doesn't really have a chance against Yosin. Kagami coming to the conclusion, if I can get in the zone, then we still got a chance. There are problems with this, however. If you want to get into the zone or are trying to get into the zone, then you are not going to be able to do so. After doing it once, you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like when you're unstoppable, so it's natural to think, let me do it one more time. But those feelings keep it from happening. The zone is all about focus, so there's one thing that can mess it up. You can never get in the zone if that's what you are trying to do. With a little bit of a pep talk from Kisei, Kagami is able to re-enter the zone and begins to dominate not only Murasakibara but the rest of Yosin as well, directly blocking a full power Thor's hammer by Murasakibara. It being directly noted that the only thing that can stop Kagami now is if somebody else gets in the zone, in which case the prospect of Murasakibara entering the zone is brought up. But there's problems with this. Murasakibara's ideology is the one thing that's hindering him from getting in the zone, as there's one thing players like Kisei say for sure. Despite Murasakibara having the talent, the bare minimum you need to make it happen is the willingness to bet it all on the game. In other words, you gotta love basketball more than anything, but that love is the one thing Murasakibara's been lacking. Despite having all of the talent and being the strongest in pure ability, he can't enter the zone due to how bored and how disheveled he is with the game of basketball. The gap between Murasakibara and Kagami being so overwhelming that Kagami seems to be airwalking. Despite Murasakibara jumping second, he's falling first in response to Kagami going for a dunk. What this does is cause Murasakibara to just outright give up on the game. I've had enough. I'm done. Sub me out. Nobody could stop Kagami now, so what if we lose? This actually causes Himuro to sock Murasakibara in the face, telling him to pull it together. Murasakibara responding that he's the one struggling against Kagami even more than himself. He's got more talent than you have to know that, right? In which case, Himuro acknowledges the fact that Kagami does have more talent than him, despite the fact that he loves basketball more and started it first. Himuro outright admitting his jealousy over his talent and Murasakibara's. Noting how he's got talent he'd kill to get his hands on, and now you're just gonna throw the game away just like that. It feels like I'm gonna lose my mind, I'm so mad. Himuro just outright crying in response to this. Out of all of the times players have tried to preach to Murasakibara, this is actually the first time that all of that annoying crap is actually somehow impressive to him, leading to Murasakibara throwing a hair tie on and staying in the game till the end. It being noted that Yosin is more dangerous than ever. We also get more insight to Murasakibara how this game's gonna get a lot more annoying, but losing's worse. Meaning Murasakibara dislikes annoying things or anything to deal with effort, but losing is something way worse than any annoying short-term pain. This is actually very pivotal to Murasakibara as a character, as it's seen in the prelude to the Winter Cup and even as far back as his middle school days, as Murasakibara began wanting to skip practice, as if Aomine doesn't have to come in and he's putting up points, why should Murasakibara have to come in? With this also being showcased to us before the Winter Cup, as it's noted that something's changed with you, Atsuchi. It's usually nothing but complaints from you, but today you're actually giving it your all in practice. Murasakibara noting, "I still hate practice, but I hate losing even more." This actually leads to Murasakibara beginning to coordinate and work with Himuro, which is actually really fascinating since this is something the Generation of Miracles only really adopt into the Winter Cup, yet Murasakibara is one of the first to actually coordinate with another team member to that extent. With the game reaching its climax, Siren only 1 point behind Yosen, it seems as if Siren is turning this around. But then there is a subtle shift in the air. Murasakibara, with his two-handed dunk, actually proceeds to begin overpowering Kagami, this specific dunk being stronger than any of his previously. Trails of lightning shimmering off Murasakibara's eyes, requiring Kiyoshi to actually assist Kagami in the air to block Murasakibara's dunk. But this is where Kagami, Kisei, and Aomine notice something strange. Murasakibara was in the zone. Kagami himself having no chance now that Murasakibara's in the zone, leading to Kagami performing his Meteor Jam for the first time, securing a lead over Yosen. But this is not the end point. Murasakibara dashes to the other side of the court with outstanding speed. But due to the continuous fatigue he had been exhibiting during this game and jumping with that big body of his over and over, his knees can't take the stress anymore. This being a common problem for the Generation of Miracle members as their talent do exceed their physical capabilities. This leading to Murasakibara attempting to just lay the ball in, getting blocked by Kuroko, leading to the end of the game. In defeat, Murasakibara notes, "I'm quitting basketball. I only played today because Mura was so desperate, but it sure was boring. Basketball's already dull to start with, there's even less point if I'm gonna lose." Characters like Kiyoshi and Kuroko not believing that he's actually going to quit. It being shown that Murasakibara is crying afterwards due to his actual passion over basketball. This is shown as you need to love basketball more than anything in the world, and Murasakibara was actually able to enter the zone, being cornered and managing to opening the gates in the end. So Murasakibara is somebody who got annoyed at everybody's speeches, ideology, or just loving basketball due to how he also loved the sport itself, but due to how physically gifted he was, the sport itself was just so boring for him. Hence why, despite everything he says or everything that's said about him, the fact that he entered the zone is all of the evidence we need. This actually isn't the end for Murasakibara, as we actually do see in the extra or last game, he does get a bit of a nice conclusion to him finding basketball boring or why he has this outlook. It's revealed during this game that Murasakibara has actually been subconsciously holding himself back out of a lingering fear of injuring his opponents. This 100% being tied to why he finds basketball as boring as he does, because he's not even able to go all out against an opponent. But now Murasakibara is met with an opponent who outright surpasses him in power, that being Jason Silver. For the first time, Murasakibara's unconscious seal has been lifted and there is nothing holding him back any longer. He can finally discard any remaining hesitation, let it all flow, and go full throttle. On top of Murasakibara dominating, he has the same expression that Kagami does when fighting a powerful opponent, that being a face of utter glee and enjoyment. For the first time, Murasakibara is able to enjoy basketball to the fullest since he's able to play against somebody whose power equals or rivals his own. It's the perfect conclusion for someone who was too strong for everybody else and was bored by it, being met with the only one who could match him and just being overjoyed at that prospect. In short, Murasakibara's boredom and annoyance more so comes from a place of just being stronger than everybody else, to an extent to where he has to almost treat everybody like a cardboard box, and basketball as a game, despite how he actually does love it, becomes far more tedious due to this unconscious seal. But that is Murasakibara, the original depiction of the lazy genius of sorts, although I personally don't even think he's that lazy, so to speak. More so just doesn't want to try as hard for the reasons we listed. Let me know what you guys thought down below. Do you agree, disagree, why? Like and subscribe if you want to see more Kuroko videos. There's a bunch on the channel and want to see more of them. I will let you guys go. Why am I saying that like I'm holding your hand? I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.